Iran factor and the Russia factor, and interestingly we've had meetings with both yesterday, and today we're looking at China. But just an overview of the timings of it and the significance of it for the chair. First,
let me take in that way. There are of course there is a common agenda of the BRICS countries that they are looking forward to have more economic integrations. They are looking de-dollarization of the economy, and they are preferring to have transactions in their own currency. Like the Chinese, they always advanced, and during when there were sanctions on Russia, the Chinese they have exchange in their own currency. So this is one aspect, that the common agendas of economic and sustainable economic growth and integrations and resource sharing and all that. But I would also say that the country, they have also very specific their own agendas, and there it comes while you talk about Putin and Russia. They are looking forward to build an anti-American bloc, or where this has been joined by the Chinese and the Iran, I would say. But India, I'm not sure India is not joining any bloc or joining against any bloc. So India is not supporting this idea of anti-American and anti-West bloc could become BRICS, because India is believing moreover in the multi-aligned foreign policy, where we are part of the BRICS, we are part of the SCO, we are part of the Quad.
And we're also seen as a bridge between the North and the South.
Of course.
And the South and the West.
Yes, that is also a very important point you have raised, that in fact India is a bridge between the different groups and different institutions in the world, and where India had been can become and can talk about the concerns of the global South, what the global South, and this has been started while India was hosting G20 summit, and India has become the voice of the global South, and there we talk about global commons as well as global goods. And in the global commons, where the Chinese and the Indians, they have a common agenda of the climate change and all that, but the global goods, what it is impacting, I think it is impacting by the two wars happening between Russia and Ukraine, where the food prices gone very high, fuel prices had gone very high, and the tourism business and all that impacting on the global South. So I think BRICS can address these issues. But I will also take one more point here, very interesting point, that where the countries, like we have seen the 15th BRICS summit in South Africa, and that was not very conducive environment while Xi Jinping did not join the dinner, the business dinner hosted by then. And the second very important, that Putin did not participate in because of the ICC's issues, that and the third, that the way they were hosting, the South Africans hosting, I think the number of the countries including India were not happy the way they are inviting. So, and nothing had happened except the few countries they have designated that they will become the member of BRICS. And in that very interesting point, where Saudi Arabia and UAE was also offered, and Argentina was one among them, including Iran and all that. But interestingly, Argentina has declined to become the member of the BRICS, but and Saudi Arabia did not answer yet. UAE has become the member.
Yes.
But interesting point is, while Iran and UAE join from the Gulf countries, would definitely strengthen the voice and views of the BRICS countries, and that could balance somehow what it has been constructed by the West, or by the dollar, or by the Americans. So I think the interest of these countries who are part of that, because India wants to have good relations with Iran, because we are having very good relations because of the business and trade and investment.
So the larger question here is, so can BRICS really shift or BRICS plus really shift the world order? I want to take this to Ambassador Lagoon. So are these countries already challenging? Is this template there already existing, the narrative that these Ambassador Lagoon, the BRICS and BRICS plus nations have it in them in terms of challenging the US-led world order? Because we're looking at BRICS plus, that is something which brings together some of the world's largest energy producers and buyers together.
Yeah, I would say from India's point of view, rather than challenging, it is better to use the word, to bring the two worlds together and more cooperative world. Like we have this a concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So India has this chance of living up to it in that sense. And as Professor said, that India is, unlike some of the powerful countries of BRICS, who want to take a very strong anti-West stance. India has been taking a more balanced stance.
Neutral, yes.
And, yeah, neutral
Nuanced
and,
position.
yeah, no, and this is a more or less reflection of the India's stand, which flowed from its role in during the non-aligned movement. When the Cold War period was there. So that way, and non-aligned played a very useful role during that time. So there is no doubt to, or there is no any reason to not to expect India to play a similar role. Especially India is one of the biggest countries. If you say Russia and China, others are all relatively much smaller, both in terms of economy and population and the global weight. Now, India's weight, of course, has increased considerably in the last 10, 15 years.
And that is something, Ambassador, which Russia has acknowledged and spoken about it in so many ways. I mean, if you look at the visuals of President Putin, if we can just play those visuals, yesterday they met twice. In fact, there was a first formal meeting of the day, and then later in the evening, the way President Putin, there is this personal touch that you see in the body language.
And President Putin, especially personally himself,
yes.
Is very much looks towards India. And even when India has deepened its ties with West, especially USA, its relationship with Russia has not diminished or has not been affected as speculated, and it is hats off largely to President Putin, who understands the importance of India both in context of global world, and they know that Russia has never acted historically any time against India, and India keeps this in mind, which was also stated by our foreign minister. So Russia has always stood by India in any test of time, whereas other countries, it has been more an up and down relationship with the West. So we want to maintain that, we want to signal that, and that is why Russia very much feels comfortable, and also in its growing relationship with China, especially in the economic side and security side. Russia knows that they should not put all eggs in one basket, because again historically with China, Russia shares a very big border, especially in the south, during that river, and historically that has always been not very conducive relationship between the two, especially in the Siberian side. So there is always a fear of Chinese in Russians' mind, Chinese territorial expansion that side. It may not be obvious now, but there is a lurking doubt. And they know that to balance that, India, with whom they have a time-tested relationship in all areas and never has been inimical at any time, especially in the recent past. So for President Putin, India holds a very important friendship and significance. And that is likely to play out in this summit, especially between India and Russia.
Yes.
And India's moderating role is likely to be very
that point on India's role as a moderator, Professor Bharadwaj, yesterday in Honorable Prime Minister's opening remarks, there's this, and in fact, this was elaborated in the press briefing also yesterday by the MEA, that, the fact that the both leaders are meeting twice in 3 months, and in a decade, this is, I think, the 7th meeting, and Prime Minister briefed him about his interactions with other regional players, plus his, Kiev visit, and India is willing to assist and offer any help if need be. There are murmurings, there are going to be some sort of conversations revolving around it. Are we looking at a stage where India's role, perhaps as an interlocutor or a mediator, is going to get a little more crystallized here?
Yeah, a very important point. Two, three important. One is, of course, you know that what is India's track record. India had been a supporter of the peace and stability all over the world, and being a largest functional democracy, that India can play a very constructive role through dialogues, debates, discussions and negotiations on all the conflicting issues, including Russia and Ukraine, because India has been a law-abiding country. India is believing in the UN Charter that sovereignty and territorial integrity with every country should respect. So this is one aspect, but very important point what Ambassador has raised, that you know there is uncertainty in the behavior of the Chinese and Americans on number of the global and regional issues, that they what interest they will prioritize, either economic interest or security interest, that you do not know. And he has given very clear example of 1970s, 1969 when there were Sino-Soviet conflicts on the border. So here you can see that who are the trusted friend. The trusted friend is the Russia and India. They have trade, investment and economic relations. We have very strong defense and strategic partnership with Russia, and that has been a time tested. Whenever India required, the Russians, they had been always with us, and India, whenever the Russians they required, India had been. And you know, you can see when there were crises, there were sanctions on Russia in this Ukraine crisis, India had been doing the business with the Russians. So we are having that commonality of the interest that is bringing together. But very interesting point what the Putin is doing right now, that if the BRICS, beyond the BRICS summit or along the BRICS summit, if they can bring the thaw between India and China, that we are not progressing at all for the last 5 years. And the way they are negotiating and talking about the patrolling issues and about the peace and stability in the on the border issues, I think that could happen, would be a booster for the economic growth of India, because the Chinese, they are in crisis, economic crisis right now. There are high housing issues and there are a number of issues. So the Chinese, they are also looking that to have access to India's emerging middle class market. Okay. So there are interests that the Chinese, they are looking to have a thaw with India because of the economic interest, because of the increasing Chinese presence in this region, that also concerns to the Chinese as well as the Russians.
Professor Bharadwaj, let's also take a moment and